Peace, family, peace. All right, so today's video, I wanted to talk about abandonment issues, and I know I have done several videos like on Facebook pertaining to abandonment issues. Honey, okay, listen, all right. A lot of this is our perception, right? And as I'm saying it, I'm thinking about this damn thing, all right, over here that I had. So I was doing my eyebrows with these little razors, and I nipped myself over here. So don't get distracted by that, okay? Don't get distracted. So first off, my name is Deena Bryant. I do inspirational videos. I talk about my life. I talk about ways that I am challenging myself to get rid of some of the belief systems, the pathologies, and the traditions that I grew up with, some of the things that is not serving, or some of the things that is not working in this here day and age. So jumping right into it, I'm going to tell you guys like a little bit about myself. So I grew up, okay, in the city, all right, and my father, from what I remember, my father pretty much had custody of me from, as I remember, like from a early age, okay. My father had custody of me. I don't remember my mother and father like being together, like in a relationship, sort of. Only thing I remember, my father having custody of me, and my father, pretty much being a legal guardian. So growing up with my father, okay, I was pretty much a daddy's girl, right? I pretty much was like really, really close to my father. It was like nothing he did I seen any wrong into it. Although he did some stuff, right? But I just didn't see anything wrong with it. Because I was so attached to my father. And from the age of 5 years old, I had got taken away from my father because the environment that I was in, it was unsafe, okay? So some of the things that was going on was drug abuse, prostitution. Prostitutes would come to the house and, get high and stuff like that. So all of that. And what I believe is that our family, right, our parents, they did the best that they knew how to do, right? It's no playbook, it's no rules of, well, do this, do that, do this. And if they don't work on that on themselves, just like you and I, if we don't work on ourselves, we will continue the cycle. We will continue doing the same exact things that been handed down to us, which is pathologies, tradition, and things of that nature, right? So being taken away from my father is like a whole story in itself, but I'm just gonna just walk you through the abandonment issues. So being taken away from my father, I went to a foster home first, and that didn't work because I ran away from the foster home. I seen one of my father girlfriends, and I pretty much left. And it wasn't too far, like from where my father lived, probably like 5 to 10 minutes, like from where my father lived. And from there, the foster lady, the foster mother, who was very, very nice, she was like, she couldn't deal with that. She couldn't, take me, running away, and she was doing, all that she could do to help me. It was me and my sister to help us, and, running away, she just couldn't deal with it. So from that point, I got placed into a group home, and my mother's sister, and which is my aunt, and my uncle, they had, went to the court systems to try to get custody of my sister and I. And so I stayed in the foster home for a little bit. And then after the foster home, I had went to go stay with my aunt and uncle. And it was different, right? It was different. It was like, coming from a place with, staying with my father with no structure, no rules pretty much. Because my father was the type, like, you do whatever it is that you do, but if you get caught, that's just going to be on you, right? No supervision, sort of. It was just like, we do whatever pretty much it was that we wanted to do. And so living with my aunt and her husband and her daughters, it was different. It was like so different. And I appreciate, now back then I didn't appreciate it because, honey, I was running away from there too, right? To go back to my father, because it was like the rules and everything. And at this time, I believe my aunt had got me when I was 7 years old, and I stayed with her from 7 to 12. And then I started running away. I seen my father down by the projects where I used to live, and I seen him, and it was like, wow, right? Like, I haven't seen him in so long. So, I started thinking, like, my father, I could be back with my father and all this other stuff. So, moving forward, I started running away after school. I went to a Catholic school, wouldn't go home some days. Would just go down the projects where my father lived, and I would stay down there. And my aunt, she would be worried. She would call the cops, and, because she didn't know what happened to me nor my sister. So from that point on, my aunt, she, the same thing, because it happened so much. Like, I was running away, honey. I was running away. Like, I don't know. It was so frequent that I was doing it. And looking back at the things that I did and me having 4 children, I could relate to my aunt, especially like if you did all what you possibly could do. And not saying that you always was right. Not saying that it always was, correct the way that you parented. But when you did the best that you knew how to do, right? I could totally relate to it. So from there, I went to this shelter, and was staying in the shelter in Jersey City. And from the shelter, was running away from there, honey, too. Okay, going back down to where my father was staying. And from this shelter, my father, he just was like, you know what? I'm going to get custody of you guys again. And he had lawyers. He got custody of me. And then from the age of 12, since is going back into an environment with like no supervision, same exact things. And I think a lot of times, like, we be wanting things to change, right? And it's like, if things didn't change, like even in relationships, right? Sometimes we want to go back to those toxic relationships that we know that's not serving us, right? They ran their course, and we want to stay in those relationships because we're afraid to be alone. So it was sort of like the same concept. Like, I knew, and at an early age, I just was like, I don't want nobody telling me pretty much what I could do, right? It was pretty much like, I want to do as I please and things like that. And then that got me going to the youth house for selling drugs at 12 years old. And while I was going, in and out of the institutions like the youth house and stuff like that, my father had passed away, and nobody was like, nobody didn't want to deal with that. Like, oh, she's selling drugs now. We don't know what else type of activity she's in. So I got placed in all girls home. And from the all girls home, my sister and brother from my father's side, their mother had got custody of me. Well, their mother and their stepfather got custody of me. So I pretty much wanted to give you the background of abandonment, right? And what I know to be true is this, that a lot of us, we have or dealt with or is dealing with abandonment issues. And I don't like saying, oh, well, I'm dealing with abandonment issues, because I believe the energy that you keep putting on it, like you keep saying, well, you dealing with abandonment issues, you dealing with abandonment issues. I think that keeps showing up in your life, right? Like, I believe that energy grows where energy goes. So one of the things that I started doing, because it even showed up in my relationships, right? And the type of abandonment, right, is different levels of abandonment, right, or different scenarios, or I don't know, but it's different types of abandonment. So I had went online, and it was a survey. Well, not a survey, but statistics about abandonment issues and stuff like that. And there's this website called Choosing Therapy, and it has like physical abuse 28.3%. That children go through in the U.S. households, right? Substance abuse in the home 26.9%. That's what they often see, like, from an early age. And parental separation, divorce 23.3%, sexual abuse 20.7%, and mental illness in the home 19.4%. And I wanted to do the statistics and talk to you guys about that, because I think a lot of times, like, we feel like we are on our own. A lot of times we feel as though that we are the only ones that's that went through the traumas that we experienced when we were children. And I'm no therapist. I'm just telling you guys from my experience, and some of the things I'm gonna share with you guys, some of the things that I do. But so the definition, I probably should have read this first. The abandonment, the act of abandoning or the state of being abandoned, obsolete, relinquishment, total desertion, early childhood traumas. Abandonment issues involve a deep fear of being hurt, rejected, or abandoned. And then it says, some of the abandonment, issues or whatever, and it's childhood abuse, neglect, or loss of a loved one, right? So some of the things that helps me, right? What I notice in my life is that I'm the type or was the type, right? Was the type that will cut people off before they could leave, right? And it's so funny, because it's like, so I would choose relationships with guys that I pretty much felt like I could control, in a sense. Like, I've pretty much would choose guys that I felt like I could sort of shape them into being the way I wanted them to be. And that comes from a control, just controlling, right? So when I would choose these relationships, right, and it was like the fear of, so what I would do was I would choose relationships that I felt like I was sort of too good for, right? That the guy probably was, a certain type of way, or he felt like I was a prize, sort of. This is going on with the ego, okay? Sort of like I was a surprise, and this guy pretty much was going to do whatever it was that I wanted him to do. And it all came from abandonment issues, right? It all came from me choosing people that pretty much would do whatever it was that I wanted them to do. And it's like, if you choosing people from a place of lack or scarcity, or a place of, manipulation, like this person, I know I'm out of their league or whatever it is, but I'm going to choose them, and I know I could make them, sort of like building somebody, right? I know I could make them into the person that I want them to be and whatever, right? Oftentimes, a lot of times that don't work out so well, right? Because it's like the inner child in me, right? My soul would know this relationship is not going anywhere. This relationship served its purpose, and you need to move away from this relationship. And some incidents would be, physical abuse. I experienced, mental abuse, emotional abuse. And all of that relates back to like my childhood, because seeing my father with multiple women and abusing women, I would choose guys that, would sometimes be overprotective, or sometimes I was overprotective, and it was like I would recreate what I was familiar with, right? Like I would recreate what I grew up seeing, and I would recreate it in my adult life. And I think a lot of us, most of us, we do it, and it comes from subconsciously. We don't even realize that we're doing it. We just do it, right? So what I realized, right, after I started doing the work on myself, and I'm still doing the work on myself, honey, this is an ongoing thing. Okay, don't get it misconstrued. I'm still doing the work on myself, but what I realized is, at times I'm afraid, right? At times I'm afraid because at times I feel like if I give this person my all, if I be vulnerable, then the person is going to wind up leaving. So what I would do is I would look for all the things that was wrong with a person, and create conflict, create chaos or whatever, and didn't even realize I was doing it. And I would create these things because in the back of my mind it would be like subconsciously that this person is going to wind up leaving anyway, so let's get it over with now, right? So that's one of the things, right? Like being aware, right? Being aware. This is like, I'm gonna share with you guys like some of the things that I do and how to move past it, right? But one of the things is me becoming aware that I do that, right? I would look for the worst in people that I would be in relationships with, and wanted them to be sort of like this perfect little thing that I created. And that's like, it's unhealthy, right? It's very unhealthy. Codependent, right? Oh, well, you do this. And I would get into relationships and I'd be like, well, so sex, I know it's like switching gears. So in relationships with me, sex is like, it's not the first thing. To me, it's like stimulating in my mind, whereas though we could grow. It has to be way more than just sex, right? So it's like being aware of it. Honey, I'm losing my thought. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, these things, I'm losing thought. Okay, so it has to be way more than that, right? So one of the things, I'm just going to do the list and then I'm getting off of here. So being aware of it, of the things that you tend to do, right? That's one. Two, I meditate. So meditation, it helps me tremendously to observe, or to be the observer of my thoughts, and understand that I am not my thoughts. Okay. Thoughts to me is like, and it's so funny because I was listening to Aaron Dorothy, Dowdy, right? That's a YouTuber. And one of the things that he was saying was thoughts are like clouds, right? They passing. So that's two, being an observer of my thoughts. And then three, I do videos, right? Because to me, doing these inspirational videos is like a form of therapy in a sense, right? And being authentic. Like, I could be authentic in these videos and transparent in these videos, because I know that I'm not the only one that experienced abandonment issues or whatever it is. And by me sharing my story, it lets other people understand that they're not alone, right? And that they don't have to keep making the same exact choices and hoping and praying and lucking for something different. And I'm a firm believer of, we do not have to stay where we are, right? By any means. We could always move. And sometimes, right, or not sometimes, but your journey isn't going to look like anyone else's journey. Your journey is going to look different. And that's the beauty of your journey, right? So if you want different, right? Because the relationships I was in, I would be like, damn, it was like all the guys was pretty much the same, right? They had like the same exact issues, and we attract what we are, not what we say we want, not what we say we hope to have, but we attract exactly who we are. And if you're not, like, if I wasn't doing the work on myself, or if I'm not doing the work on myself, then those same exact relationships would just keep showing up, right? And I had a good friend. I'm gonna say this, then I'm going. I had a good friend who always, and it was a guy, and he always used to say, Deena, if you do not, basically he was saying, if you do not learn how to love yourself, you would get in your 30s and you will never understand what love feels like. And at the time, I was like, no, that ain't true, right? Because I ain't want to believe it. I was like so in denial. I was like, I don't want to believe this shit, what he's saying. It's not true. Okay, I'm going to just find a perfect guy, and there's no perfect person, right? And it's like, you got to be it. You got to be it, right? Write a list down. That's another thing. Write a list down of what you want to attract. And write it down. And when you write it down, you have to become those things. If you say you want someone that's honest, you have to become honest. If you say you want somebody that's loving, you have to become those things. So understand that although we all went through traumas when we were children, right? And it wasn't our fault for going through those things and those experiences, but it's our responsibility to do something different in order to get something different. And I look at my life and understand that, how could I change, right? So every day is about me evolving, right? It's about me growing. It's about me getting different. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. And what if, right? What if the true way to love is for you to accept your past, for you to get rid of the story, for you to understand that the people who raised you, they did the best that they knew how. And I so could relate to that, because having 4 children, my children, whew. So I have two boys, two older children, and then 2 small children. And they are reflections, honey. When I say reflections, they are reflections of me. Okay, and everybody is just a reflector of you. And don't take it personal, or don't keep feeling like you have to stay with their story, their abandonment story. Don't feel like, because the adults didn't love you the way you felt you ought to be loved, or they didn't listen to you, they neglected you. Don't feel like that you got to keep on creating that same story, that same exact scenario. You can move at any given time you want, and it's up to you. It's up to you. I do believe that we make contracts, right? To be born into certain families, and the families that we are born into. And it's like we born into those families, and those families, they give us the best that they could give, right? And it's like, we become so judgmental. Oh, well, my family did this or my family did that. And it's like when you grow up, are you making the same exact decisions that your family was making, right? It's like, are you doing the same exact thing? And if you are, I mean, hey, it's your life. You don't have to keep on doing the same exact thing because, grandma did it or your mama did it or your uncle or your father or whatever. You can move. So with that being said, I love you guys. I love you. I love you. Make sure you're rocking out, believing in yourself. Make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel so I could keep on creating. Well, I'm going to keep on creating the content anyway. All right. So understand that even if you are stuck, right, and you don't even know what's the next step, that is okay too. That is okay. But just deciding, all right, well, I'm stuck. I want better, right? Just decide and you want better. I guarantee you, if you decide you want better, things from the universe, synchronicities, it'll start happening. So you don't have to know every step. And I'm talking to myself when I say this too. You don't have to know every step on what to do and what's the next move and stuff like that. Just get started. Just make a choice. Just make a decision. I want better. And then you'll start getting better. But you have to make a decision. So with that being said, I love you guys. Peace.